Jennifer Scott. She's the CEO and Chief People Officer at Hire Effect. Hey, Jennifer.
Hey, Rebecca. Nice to be here. Thanks so much for having me today.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited that we have Jennifer on today. Hire Effect helps small to medium businesses with financial, HR, and business services. But what we're going to be talking about today is how Jennifer helps companies hire the right people for the right jobs. And especially nowadays or right now that it's difficult to have in-person interviews, that is such an important thing to think about. So Jennifer, why is it important to have a really good interview process?
The cost of a bad hire, Rebecca, can be really devastating for a small business. Not only are you investing a ton of time and effort in an interview process and trying to really identify the right person, so there's the time input that is taken away when you have a wrong hire. There's cost often in onboarding a new person to payroll, to benefits, to HR. There's more time invested there. You've now wasted a month or two or three of salary paid out. And I think worse is the morale that it can impact in a really negative way to the rest of the people on the team. So the cost of a mishire it really can be devastating.
Wow. I mean, I think a lot of people, and I've certainly approached hiring in the past, is you think, well, this person seems like a great fit. Let's go for it. And it doesn't work out. And then you're right. That impact can be devastating. All right. So we have a job vacancy. What now?
Great question. And, it's interesting. I think a lot of people, when they discover they have a need, just rush to fill what appears to be the immediate need rather than really digging deep and figuring out what it is they really need to hire for. I recommend actually 4 different documents that get prepped to really start a job search or, start a search for the right person. You need a basic job description. I like to look at a job description as more of a legal document where you're covered for all of your reasonable accommodation possibilities. You're talking about the work environment and how many pounds someone needs to lift or whether or not they need to climb a ladder. If they need to walk, talk, and feel for the job for various reasons. But it's really about the specific duties that this person's going to have to participate in or take control of when they're in the job. And it's that infamous, other duties as assigned that needs to be on there just to cover. It's really hard to hire against other duties as assigned, however. People don't know what they're, really going to be expected to be doing or what they're going to be held accountable for, or most importantly, how success is going to be measured for that job. So from the job description, I create what I call a scorecard. It's really adapted, from top grading methodology, which I'm a big fan of. And what this scorecard does is actually outline the accountabilities and how those accountabilities are going to be measured objectively. So, you're going to be responsible for X number of outbound sales calls per day, and how that's measured is the CRM, or, whatever it's going to be, but it's going to be very objective accountabilities that can be measured, and really removing the subjectivity from, do we think the person can do this job? From there, I create a job ad, which is very different from a job description. If you think of a job description as a legal document, your job ad is a piece of marketing. It really needs to attract the right person. You need to make sure that you're speaking to the right audience. You're going to talk about your culture. You're going to talk about your employee value proposition. You're going to talk about your brand. You're going to talk about, most importantly, what that person's going to get in return for putting in the effort in doing their job. You're also going to be really specific about, what a day in the life might look like. It doesn't need to list a ton of bullet points, but you want to talk about your culture and what you really expect from this person. And so when you put those 3 documents together, it's really, really helpful to understand and make sure that the person that you're, attracting understands what's going to be expected of them in the job, and what's in it for them, which is, I think, super important. And then the last thing I create is an interview guide. And we want to make sure that that interview guide is going to ask all the right questions to get all the right information out of that candidate when you finally select someone that you want to bring in. So.
Right. Okay, so just to recap, that's 4 documents.
It is.
Job description, an ad, the scorecard to figure out, okay, from this job description, what are the things that this person is expected to do and how are we going to measure it? And then also an interview guide. Jennifer, It seems like a lot of work. Is it really worth it?
Yes. When you hire the right people who really fit your business and who fit your culture and who match your core values, and for certain they're going to excel in this job, not only are they going to be happy, but you're going to be happy, and your company is going to grow inevitably when you get the right fit. And it's not just skill set, right? The right fit is skill set, it's culture, it's values, it's personality, it's everything that says, I need this person on my team, and with this person on my team, we're going to go gangbusters.
Right. Okay. So I heard you mention core values and culture. And I feel like a lot of small to medium businesses kind of skip over that or don't think about it. So if we're going through the hiring process and we don't have a defined core values, or we haven't thought about our culture, is that going to affect our hiring process?
It is. Ultimately, you can have the perfect skill set match and have a horrible culture fit or values fit, and that person is going to be toxic for your organization. I don't think there's any such thing as a bad culture. I think there's such thing as a bad cultural fit. What might make one person really happy in a job might make somebody else in the exact same job completely miserable. And if you don't know that the person's going to mesh with your culture and really want to be a part of growing your business, it's just flat out not going to work. You're going to realize high turnover. You're going to have all sorts of people issues. The people that do fit your culture are going to be frustrated. You're going to be frustrated. And ultimately, that employee is going to be frustrated.
Right. So, this is going a little bit off script, but if somebody hasn't figured out the core values, like it seems like, oh my God, it's going to take me 10 hours. It's going to take me, is it really that hard?
I don't think it has to be. It can be more of a challenge the larger the company. Really think about the best people you have on your team, the people that you wish you could clone. And then think about what it is that makes them the best people. Why are they the best people? Is it that they're super positive and upbeat? Is it that they're very detail oriented and meticulous and, are absolutely, their top concern is quality and excellence? Are they really customer focused and will do anything for a client? Think about what it is that really makes those people the best people. And then use that as a jumping off point to really dig into what your values are, why you appreciate that person so much.
Right. And I really feel like before you're doing a hiring process, you could just brainstorm and say, hey, these are the people we really like. Let's just jot down real fast. These are the things that really characterize our culture, even if you don't then make it into a core values statement. You can use it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. It doesn't need to be a complicated process.
Okay. So once we've decided, okay, for example, we like really positive, upbeat people, just throwing that out as an example. How do we make sure we interview people to make sure it fits our culture? Because you can interview people in the skill set. I think most people do that, but then going that step for the culture fit.
Yeah. So I like to combine when I create these interview guides, a different, all the kinds of different approaches to interview questions. So, I think you've got your sort of general, straightforward, how would you rate your experience on a scale of 1 to 10? The kind of straightforward skill set questions. You've got some behavioral questions like, tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult person on your team and how did you work with that person? You've got some situational interview questions like, how would you deal with XYZ? Like, let's say you have a client on the phone who's really unhappy, given what you know about this job, what would you do? Right? So you've got your behavioral and situational. And then my favorite are actual case questions. Take a situation that you're dealing with. This is great for customer service. It's great for accounting. I mean, it's great for sales. I mean, this is really one of my favorite types of questions. Give a problem that you either recently solved or are trying to solve right now and see what that thought process is. When you ask the question, you're not necessarily looking for them to know the right answer because you're going to train them on how you want them to do things the way you do things. But you want to look at that thought process. Are they checking all the boxes? Are they asking the right questions? Are they thinking through the situation in the way that you would expect someone that you're hiring think through that situation? So when you combine all of those, then I think you get a really good picture of who that person is.
Okay. And do we actually write the questions based off of the candidate? How do we do that?
So it's really important for a lot of reasons that you ask the same questions of every single person you're interviewing for that specific job in this specific interview round. So, you want to have a set interview guide, a set list of questions that you're asking every single person. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to script everything you say. You're going to have a conversation. You're going to have a dialogue. And that part is certainly going to be based on what those candidates say to you. Asking follow-up questions, when you ask a behavior question, like, tell me about a time when this happened. Well, my next question is always, well, what did you learn from that? Tell me what the experience was like for you. Those are always going to be different, and they're going to be based on the answers that you get. But those initial questions that you ask really do need to be the same for every person you're interviewing.
Right. Okay, so say I've got a list of 20 questions, and that 20 questions could take up to an hour to
easily.
So do I have to ask, so after maybe 10 minutes, I'm thinking this person isn't a good fit. What do I do?
Cut it short. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have any questions for me? It depends. It depends on how the conversation's going for me. If I'm doing a phone interview and I can really hear in the candidate's voice, they're not thrilled with what's going on, I might just stop and say, hey, it doesn't sound like you're really excited about this role. Do you want to, maybe save some time? And they often feel really, they're appreciative of that because they're so not into what's going on. Sometimes I'll say, okay, great. I don't have any other questions for you. I'm going to talk to, our hiring manager, talk to our VP. I'll get back to you, or I might just be flat out, look, I'm not sure this is the right job for you. And I'll tell them why, which I think is also often very much appreciated. I think the worst things that job seekers go through is either not hearing from the employer, not hearing from the place they applied, and not knowing why they didn't get the job. It's very frustrating.
Right.
So as much as I can be honest with them, I try.
That makes sense. Okay, well, we didn't plan on talking about this, but do you have any advice for job seekers? There are a lot out there right now.
Yeah, there are. Do your due diligence. You need to interview this company as much as they're interviewing you. You spend way too much time in your life in a job. You don't want to be unhappy. You don't want to be miserable. You want to love what you do. The majority of your life is spent working. Make the best of it. So do your research, do your due diligence, make sure it's a good culture fit for you. Make sure it's really something you're going to love doing and is in your sweet spot.
Right.
Don't settle. And I know that's really hard when, oh my gosh, I need a job. I've been there. Before I started my business, I've been there. I think that gives me a sort of unique perspective on the recruiting side. I've worked agency, I've worked corporate, I've worked boutique, and I've been a job seeker. I know what it feels like on the other side. I know how frustrating it can be. I was a recruiter and couldn't get recruiters to respond to me. I mean, it was awful. So do your due diligence, take your time, know that it'll be worth it in the end.
That's great. So I forgot to ask, what is your favorite interview question? What's one thing that every single person has to ask in an interview to get a good sense of the candidate?
So I actually learned a question, in probably my second recruiting job ever, that has stuck with me for my entire career. I ask candidates, I tell them, I'm going to give you a list of 5 things. And I want you to tell me what's most important to you in making your next career decision. Is it money, recognition, stability, challenge, or environment? And then I stop. I know they're all really important things, but which is the one thing that's most important? And for me, I don't care what their answer is. I really don't. I do care that if they say stability and they've been a job hopper, I'm going to really probe why. And if they say challenge, but they've basically had the same job doing the same thing for the last 15 years, I'm going to be like, are you sure? If, they say recognition and I don't have a recognition culture, probably not a good fit. So I'm really going to look at what their answer is and if that makes sense. Is that a fit for me, and is it in line with everything else I've heard in the interview?
Right. Awesome. Well, Jennifer, I have so enjoyed talking and learning from you today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Oh, all right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week, Tuesday at 11:30 on Facebook Live. Bye-bye.